Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our lunchtime edition of Breaking News for this Thursday. It is the 14th day of August, 2025. We're coming at you rather late today because we've had a few hiccups here at our home in Southern California. About 6 a.m., I'm just finishing recording the breaking news for the day when all the power in the house goes out. And so I had to wait till the power came back on. It came back on about an hour ago. So I started recording again. And guess what? About halfway through the recording, the power went out again. So third time's the charm. Hopefully not three strikes and you're out. So anyway, we're coming to you a little late, but better late than never. In fact, one of the stories we're doing hadn't been available in the early morning. So it's good we're going to be able to do that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Also, too, thank you, many of you who have said you're praying for my wife. Her name is Madeline, by the way. I forgot to mention that. We'll keep you updated with what's going on with her. We don't exactly know what the problem is. The doctors are checking and looking at it. And so when we know something more, we'll let you know. But appreciate your prayers on that because it's a difficult situation here. So we thank you again ahead of time for prayers. Okay, the headlines today are all powerful, four of them, but they're huge. And the first one wasn't available when we were recording at 6 a.m. this morning. And this is Unity on the Temple Mount, New Body to Lead Jewish Ascents. This is from the Israel National News. What they're finally doing is getting all the Temple Mount groups together and having one body, one group lead all the different groups that are going up to the mount. They've always been arguing and fighting amongst each other for the years, and we'll talk about that and why it is so important, so very important with respect to last days Bible prophecy. That's our top story. And then we have another huge story. Iran moves towards a dramatic internal conflict and another war. This is from Israel HaYom, and the situation there in Iran is getting very, very dicey. We'll talk about that. Speaking of dicey, our third headline, Trump warns of very severe consequences if Putin refuses to end Ukraine war after the Alaska summit. This is from the Epoch Times, and the summit, of course, is tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska. And we'll get you the story on that when we know what happens there. And finally, to make matters worse, Yemeni forces bust Iranian weapons shipment bound for the Houthis, including chemical weapons. This is from the Jerusalem Post. There was another 750 tons of weapons that were intercepted by, and this is the Yemeni Navy, the good guys in Yemen, not the ones that are the Houthis. They're fighting against the Houthis. And one of the things that was very disconcerting about what they found when they intercepted the ship of materials, this war materials coming to Yemen for the Houthis from Iran, is they found chemical weapons on board. Now, if you recall, back during the 12-day war, we were very concerned about the chemical weapons being used. That was a huge concern in the intelligence community. Why? Because there were 20 some odd flights from China that got into Iranian airspace and disappeared from the radar, totally disappeared. And we don't know why they came, what they were doing, what they were bringing, or who they were bringing back. Nobody knows. But one of the worries was they were bringing chemical weapons in to be used by Iran during the war, which of course they never did use, but we know that they have them. And now we find out that the ship that was sailed from Iran that got intercepted on the way to the Houthis in Yemen had chemical weapons on board. So we'll be doing that story too. So as you see, four huge stories. And that's why, again, we've been meaning to get them to you. Like we said, better late than never. Okay, let's look at them and explain what they mean with respect to last day's Bible prophecy. First of all, headline number one, Unity on the Temple Mount, New Body to Lead Jewish Ascents from Israel National News. Following a significant increase in the number of visitors ascending the Temple Mount, the organizations operating at the site have decided to unite under a joint steering committee to represent the needs of Jewish visitors. Okay, this is due to the notable growth of the Temple Mountain visitors. They need improved support for their needs. So the organizations, what they did, finally decided to work together, established a new unified steering committee, which will include representatives from all Temple Mount movements. They're going to work to provide broad representation for the visitors, address their inquiries and requests, improve their well-being during the visits, and create a continuous communication channel with the police. The initiative was formulated after a meeting between a large number of Temple Mount activists and the National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Following the meeting, the activists recognized the importance of cooperation among all organizations and decided to unite under a joint body to promote Jewish ascents to the site. In a statement, the organization said that this unification represents a first step along a long and welcome path aimed at bringing more Jews to ascend the Temple Mount in purity and joy. Ayala Ben Gavir, not sure if related to Itamar Ben Gavir, a longtime member of the Temple Mount Visitor Steering Committee, said, as a member of the steering committee for the Temple Mount visitors for years, there's nothing more gratifying than expanding the committee to include representatives from all active organizations on the Mount in unity and respect. We hope, God willing, that many visitors will find attentive ears to their numerous needs. Now, again, this story is huge with respect to last days Bible prophecy. Just to put it in a little bit of perspective, we've mentioned this before to you. I was privileged in 1982 to meet with some activists who were, wanting freedom of worship on the Temple Mount and eventually building Third Temple. This was on a tour in Jerusalem with our church, Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. And I was able not only to meet with them, to get to know them. Pastor Chuck Smith and I were able to go under the Temple Mount in an area where no one could visit. You can today, but in that day, nobody could get there. And it was quite a fascinating experience. We had that privilege. And so since then, we've been involved in this. If you read our book, The Jews, Jerusalem, the Coming Temple, we have an appendix about an expedition that took place in 1983 to try to find the location of the first and second temple, an expedition that was thwarted at the last minute. And so it's been an interest of mine for, obviously a lot of time, many, many years, decades actually. And so we've written about this in great detail. First of all, our book, 25 Signs, we're near the end. Sign number 8, preparations are being made to build a third temple. We talk about what's going on right now, what has happened, what is happening, what will happen. And then we have a more thorough book on the subject called, the whole book's dedicated to the subject, The Jews, Jerusalem, and the Coming Temple. And that basically goes through everything you need to know and a lot of things you probably never thought of with respect to the building of the temple, past, present, and future. Books are a free download. All of our stuff is free from our website, Educating Our World. Please take advantage of it. Tell others about it. This is under the heading of Bible prophecy. We have 12 books under the heading of Bible prophecy for your edification. Please take advantage of them and the other books, hopefully, too, on subjects like the Bible, Jesus Christ, God, the Holy Spirit, the afterlife, the unseen world, etc. All right, so they're all free downloads, no obligation. Please take advantage of it. It's a fascinating subject. Headline number 2, another exciting headline. Iran moves towards dramatic internal conflict and another war. This is from the website Israel HaYom. While the Iranian regime struggles with a severe water crisis, in fact, Netanyahu said, if you change regimes, we'll help you with the water crisis, and sharp internal criticism of the President Masoud Pezeshkian, who supports negotiations and transparency with the public, assessments of a high likelihood, now get this, a high likelihood of another war continue to hang in the air. Nearly 2 months have passed since the outbreak of the war between Iran and Israel. Negotiations for a new nuclear deal are still stagnating after Iranian insistence led to a deadlock and eventually to the current military confrontation. This week, the European powers known as the E3 increased the pressure by threatening to reimpose international sanctions against Iran. A senior Iranian official called this step an existential threat, and in the current situation, the possibility of another military confrontation in the near future cannot be ruled out. Now, Iran is really pushing this right now. They don't want to see these sanctions put back in place. We'll talk more about them in a minute. Because remember this, if you recall, we talked about during the 12-day war, Iran has a number of missiles that could reach Europe if they wanted to. And that's why the Europeans should be concerned about the threats that they make. All right, so here's what's going on. On Wednesday, yesterday, the foreign ministers of France, Germany, and Britain announced that they were ready to activate the snapback mechanism at the end of the month, but left Iran the opportunity to postpone the deadline if it's willing to return to the negotiating table in earnest. We have made it clear that if Iran is not ready to reach a diplomatic solution before the end of August or does not take the opportunity for an extension, we will be ready to activate the snapback mechanism, they wrote in a letter to the UN Secretary General. The ministers added that they have offered Iran a limited extension to allow direct negotiations between the U.S. and Iran, but the proposal so far has gone unanswered by Tehran. So what is the sanctions mechanism? This is important. What is this snapback that's being discussed? It is a mechanism built into the 2015 nuclear agreement, which allows its members to reinstate the sanctions imposed by the United Nations Security Council on Iran between 2006 and 2010. The mechanism is triggered through the Security Council, but its permanent members cannot block it with a veto, and that's good, effectively leaving Iran exposed without the diplomatic shield of China or Russia, who used to veto anything that was anti-Iran. Since the U.S. withdrew from the agreement, only France, Germany, and Britain can trigger it, but the timeline is short. The option to do so expires in October. Now, here's the big if. If the snapback mechanism is activated, all UN sanctions imposed on Iran between 2006 and 2010 would return. This includes a full arms embargo, a total ban on uranium enrichment, a ban on ballistic missile tests capable of carrying nuclear warheads, and a ban on transferring technology and technical assistance in the missile field. In addition, it would impose asset freezes and international travel bans on Iranian officials and entities, and countries would be allowed to search Iranian cargo planes and ships of the National Shipping Company to find prohibited goods. All right, is our response. Iran continues to place itself into impossible conditions. The snapback mechanism would further hurt their already very hurting economy. While they continue to prepare for another war, as we have noted, they don't have much left to fight with. All of this continues to confirm the biblical picture of Iran in the last days as a nation that is anti-Israel, wants to destroy, but not strong enough to put together any coalition, and must eventually join a coalition led by Russia in the last days, according to Ezekiel 38:39. Okay, so they're not able to do it on their own. Now, the next story will possibly set the stage for this future invasion and for what is to come. Russia, they need to be free from fighting in Ukraine, as we've talked about. Well, here comes story number 3. Trump warns of very severe consequences if Putin refuses to end Ukraine war after Alaska summit. This is the Epoch Times. He said he also wants a second meeting with both Putin and Zelensky soon after the summit. U.S. President Donald Trump warned on August 13th that there will be very severe consequences if Russian President Vladimir Putin refuses to end the war in Ukraine after their summit in Alaska tomorrow, August 15th. There will be, he said, when asked about whether Putin would face consequences if he refused to end the war in Ukraine after the Alaska summit. When asked about the nature of these consequences, Trump declined to comment. I don't have to say, he responded, there will be very severe consequences. He also said he wanted a second meeting with both Putin and Zelensky soon after the Alaska summit. The U.S. president said the first meeting with Putin will set the stage for a follow-up meeting. Said if all goes well, a second meeting, including Zelensky, could happen very quickly. If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I'd like to do it almost immediately, Trump said. He made the comments while visiting the Kennedy Center on August 13th. Trump's comments came after he and U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance joined a virtual call in the morning of August 13th, yesterday, with Zelensky to discuss the upcoming Alaska summit. The meeting, hosted by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, also included leaders from several other European Union and NATO countries. Trump described the virtual call in positive terms. We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, very, very friendly, he said. Trump and Putin are scheduled to meet again face-to-face tomorrow, August 15th in Alaska, to hold talks on ending the more than 3 years old. It's been that war in Ukraine that's been going on. He says, we really hope that a ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, will take place. It'll be the one main issue during this meeting, Trump said. He's been talking about it, Zelensky said during a news conference after the virtual meeting with Trump. He will tell me about all the results, if there are any results, and we will discuss our steps together. That's Zelensky saying. He also said he told the U.S. president that Putin was bluffing when claiming that sanctions were not hurting the Kremlin. Russia's pretending they can occupy the entire Ukraine, but that's not true. Also, he's saying the sanctions are not important, they're not working, but I am sure that sanctions are effective. They are harmful to the Russian economy. All right, so here's our take on all this. If they move towards ending the war, it will be a start for Russia to regroup and eventually have their army ready enough to invade Israel. However, as we have emphasized, the Ezekiel 38:39 scenario is still a long ways off. A number of things are not in place that yet must be in place before the invasion takes place. We talk about them constantly. The United States needs to be out of the picture in the Middle East. Israel needs to be at peace with their neighbors. There has to be a Libya. There has to be an army they can raise there in that war-torn country, which they can't even not not to get their act together. Right now, their country's divided in half. They have to be able to put an army together. And Israel, of course, has to be at peace with their neighbors, not expecting this war to happen. So all those things are future. They haven't happened yet, but they will eventually take place, and we're watching that. Now, finally, our last story confirms Iran's attempt to get back into the fight with Israel in the Western world. Headline number 4. Yemeni forces bust Iranian weapon shipments bound for the Houthis, including chemical weapons. A 750-ton weapon shipment from Iran to the Houthis terror group in Yemen was intercepted, with interrogations of the crew revealing the smuggling lanes that are being used. The Yemeni National Resistance, that's the main military faction fighting against the Houthis, seized 750 tons of weapons smuggled to the terror group by Iran, including chemical weapons. This is Sky News Arabia reported on Monday. The operation revealed that both Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and Hezbollah were involved in the weapons smuggling, using shipping routes from Africa and Asia towards the Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. The report added that, along with conventional weapons, and here's the worry, chemical weapons were also smuggled to the Houthis during the operation, citing interrogations of the crew. The main shipment, which came through the country of Djibouti, left with a commercial cover and camouflaged itself as generators, electrical transformers, air pumps, and hydraulic columns. There have already been 12 similar operations that involve sending these types of weapons to the Houthis. Now, this is further confirmation of Iran's desire to keep the war going, as well as their continued floundering and their attempts to do so. They keep trying and trying, but they run into brick walls. So we'll see what's going to happen in the future. We know they won't be the leading country in the Middle East militarily. We know that for a fact. Russia will be. They'll move back into that after this war in Ukraine gets over. So much happening. Temple Mount, Donald Trump, talk with Putin tomorrow. We've got, what's going on with the Houthis now, and then Iran also, with the snapback sanctions about to come into place, which would really hurt their economy. So, wow, big things happening, and they all set the stage for what the Bible says is going to happen at the time of the end with respect to last days Bible prophecy. All right, I'm Don Stewart. Thanks again for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow, Lord willing, with another edition of Breaking News. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.